At 8:20 p.m., a routine goodbye became the last confirmed moment Shaniece Harris was seen alive. No warning, no struggle, no screaming headline. Just a woman stepping out the door, expecting to come home. But what they didn't know was that this ordinary night was already turning fatal. Within hours, Shaniece would be gone, and 5 years later, the question would still echo, was she killed, and if so, by who? Shaniece wasn't reckless. She wasn't running from anyone. She wasn't starting over. She was 36, deeply tied to family, the kind of person who checked in, who showed up, who lived by FOE, family over everything. And that's where things got darker. Because people like Shaniece don't just walk away. They don't cut contact. They don't vanish without leaving wreckage behind. Less than an hour before she left, Shaniece spoke with her sister. Calm. By 9:30 a.m., Shaniece's girlfriend knew something was wrong. Not intuition, pattern. Shaniece always came home, always called, always checked in. So when she didn't, the alarm sounded immediately. Her sister Tamika rushed to the Monticello Police Department, expecting urgency. Instead, she was told to wait. 24 hours. A delay that would later feel unforgivable. But what they didn't know was that every minute mattered. This wasn't a runaway teen. This was a grown woman with routines, responsibilities, and deep family ties. And yet, the report wasn't taken. The search didn't begin. No alerts. No canvassing. No immediate pressure. And that's where things got darker. Because when someone is killed, the first hours are everything. Shoes leave impressions. Phones ping towers. Witnesses remember faces. Delay kills cases. When Tamika returned the next day, ready to file, she was met with confusion and accusation. Why didn't you come sooner? The question cut deep. Because she had. She tried. She was turned away. And this is where the case took a turn, from a missing person to a potential institutional failure. While the family scrambled, Shaniece's trail grew colder. Whoever she left with had time. Time to clean. Just a vehicle parked like it had been placed there on purpose. And suddenly, the question wasn't where is Shaniece? It was why was her car here? The woods swallowed sound. The delay swallowed leads. And somewhere in that gap, the truth slipped further away. The discovery should have been a breakthrough. Instead, it became another question mark. Shaniece's car sat along South Woods Drive, surrounded by trees, silence pressing in from every direction. No signs of a crash. No evidence of theft. No obvious struggle. But what they didn't know was whether this scene was a starting point or a carefully staged ending. Search teams moved in. Dogs. Volunteers. Law enforcement. The woods were combed again and again. And that's where things got darker. Because not a single trace of Shaniece was found. No clothing. No phone. No footprints leading away. It was as if she had been erased. Investigators had to ask the unthinkable. Was she killed somewhere else? Was the car dumped to buy time? Or was she taken into those woods? Because without that person, there was no timeline. No motive. No direction. Just theories. And in true crime, when answers don't come, suspicion spreads everywhere. Was it someone she trusted? Someone watching her? Someone who knew the police wouldn't act fast? But the truth was far more disturbing. Because silence isn't accidental. It's chosen. And someone, somewhere, has been choosing silence for 5 years. Nothing about Shaniece's life pointed to this outcome. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't isolated. She was warm, loving, and known for making people laugh. A woman who helped elderly neighbors with groceries and still knew how to light up a room. And that's where things got darker, because victims like Shaniece don't fit the narrative people expect. She loved home, loved family, checked in constantly. Her sisters say she never let a day pass without saying, "I love you." That night was no different. There was no goodbye that sounded final. No fear in her voice. No sign she sensed danger. But what they didn't know was that danger doesn't always announce itself. The clothes she wore that night were simple, comfortable. Black hoodie, sweatpants, sneakers. Not dressed to disappear. No confession surfaced. No arrest followed. And that silence only deepened the fear that Shaniece wasn't just missing. That she had been killed, and the person responsible had slipped through the cracks created in those first crucial hours. And somewhere, the truth remained locked behind one decision. One person choosing not to speak. Every cold case has a fracture point. For Shaniece, it may have been the first day, the refusal to immediately file a report, the delay in mobilizing resources. And that's where things got darker, Because policy says there is no waiting period for reporting an adult missing when circumstances are suspicious. So why was her sister turned away? Why was time lost? These questions still hang over the investigation like a shadow. And what they didn't know then is how devastating delay can be when foul play is involved. By the time searches began, potential witnesses had gone back to work. Security footage had been overwritten. Cell phone data had aged. The person Shaniece left with had vanished into anonymity. And this is where the case took a turn, from solvable to uncertain. Families often say the system moves fast when there's pressure, but slow when victims don't fit headlines. And the biggest question still stands. Who was that person at the door? Because until that name is known, Shaniece's story remains unfinished, and the truth remains just out of reach. 5 years is a lifetime when you're waiting for a phone to ring. Shaniece's mother still pays for her cell service. Not because she expects a miracle, but because giving up would feel like losing her twice. And that's where things got darker, because time doesn't heal wounds that never close. Every birthday passes like a reminder. Every holiday leaves an empty space. Her family speaks of her in the present tense, because letting go feels like betrayal. But what they didn't know was how long this silence would last. Cold cases don't fade, they harden. Leads dry up. Detectives retire. Files get shelved. And yet, Shaniece's name keeps circulating. On billboards, at awareness walks, in community events across the 845 area code. Her family refuses to let her become a statistic. But what happened next changed everything in a quiet way. Technology advanced. Data analysis improved. Cold cases across the country began to reopen using tools that didn't exist in 2017. And suddenly, there was a possibility, however small, that Shaniece's case could move again. Cell phone records. Vehicle data. One confession. Because closure doesn't require miracles. It requires honesty. And until that arrives, the question remains, what really happened to Shaniece Harris? Every investigation circles back to one detail. One moment that doesn't fit. For Shaniece, it's the stranger. The person she left with. No name. No history. No reason given. And that's where things got darker, because unidentified companions are where crimes hide. Why did she leave with them? Did she know them? Did she trust them? Or was it a spontaneous decision that turned deadly? What they didn't know is whether that person was seen by anyone else. Whether someone noticed a car, a face, a direction of travel. Investigators rarely speak publicly about suspects when evidence is thin. But silence cuts both ways. It protects cases, and it protects killers. And this is where the case took a turn, because without public pressure, some stories stall forever. The unanswered question that holds everything else hostage. Justice doesn't always mean an arrest. Sometimes it means answers. For Shaniece's family, knowing what happened would change everything. Not erase pain, but give it shape. And that's where things got darker, because uncertainty has no edges. It cuts forever. If Shaniece was killed, someone has lived freely while her family has lived in limbo. Birthdays, anniversaries, ordinary days turned unbearable. What they didn't know was how long this wait would last. Investigators still encourage tips. They still believe the right information could crack the case. A memory, a confession, somewhere, a phone could ring. A voice could crack. A truth could spill out. And that's where everything could change. Because Shaniece's case doesn't need luck. It needs honesty. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and local authorities continue to ask for information. Not theories. Not rumors. Facts. What happened after Shaniece left that house? Who was she with? Where did they go? These answers exist. What they didn't know in 2017 is how deeply this case would cut. How many people would be affected? How long the silence would stretch? And this is where the case took a turn, from investigation to moral test. 5 years later, Shaniece Harris is still missing. Or worse, killed, with the truth buried under time and silence. And that's where things end for now. Not with closure, but with a question that refuses to die. Her family wakes up every day wondering if today is the day. The call, the knock, the answer. What they didn't know is how strong they would have to become just to survive the waiting. This case is not cold. It's unresolved. And unresolved cases don't mean unsolvable. They mean unfinished. Somewhere, the final piece exists. And what happened next depends on one thing: whether someone chooses truth over fear. Shaniece's life deserves more than mystery. It deserves justice. And until that happens, Her story remains a reminder of what happens when moments are missed, systems fail, and silence wins. If you know something, say something. Because silence doesn't